Hey, what's going on, everyone? So today I'm going to show you how to change the front brakes on a MK7 Volkswagen GTI. So a couple things we're going to need: definitely some brake clean, also some brake grease, some high temp stuff is usually what I use. CRC's always worked for me, even on the track. So we're going to need a 21mm socket. We're going to need a 13mm socket, another skinny 17mm wrench. You're going to need a skinny one to fit in what I'll show you later, and a T30 Torx bit, and then probably a breaker bar for the 21mm bolt. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so first thing we're going to need to do is obviously get the wheels off. That's a 17mm socket. So once you get it up, two things are going to happen with this bolt. Either it's going to be really easy to get out, mine's pretty easy because it's pretty new, or it's going to be a real pain to get out. So mine, I already loosened it. It's pretty simple, but you can do it either. If it comes out really easily, great. If not, what you can do is you can take a pair of pliers, hold on to it here, smack the end of it with a hammer and twist at the same time. So smack and twist at the same time, and that'll get that bolt out if it's rusted in the screw. Okay, so to change the front brakes, all you're really going to need to do is, I can show you up top is a little easier, but the 13mm bolt here, and this is a 17mm that you're going to need a skinny wrench to get on top of, because there's not much space. I already kind of loosened it a little bit. So we're going to put it both on like this and take them off. I'm actually going to take this entire thing apart. In reality, if you were just doing the brake pads, you would only need to do the lower bolt down here, and then this whole caliper will actually flip up and you can just change the brake pads. But I'm going to be taking everything off, and stay tuned for a future video. I'm going to show you how to resurface rotors. So once we have both of those off, we'll be able to pull the caliper out. And usually I just find a place to set these along the sides so they don't fall. So one of the reasons a lot of people are going to ask why I'm changing them so soon is because I have a track day coming up, and if the thickness of the brake pad is thinner or matching to the thickness of the backing plate, usually you want to change those before you get on track, because the overwhelming heat can really destroy brake pads. So that's why I'm changing these so early. On the street, you would definitely be able to get away with this for probably a lot more miles. So yeah. So just to note, before you push the caliper back in, you're going to want to just take this brake reservoir cap off. These things do fly in the wind, so I'm going to tuck it away. You're going to want to take that off, because what it's going to do is going to push some fluid back through, and you don't want back pressure against it. So okay, so I'm just going to push the caliper in. You can actually use a C-clamp for this if you wanted to. I'm just going to use this because it's a little bit easier on me. Okay, so if you were going to use a C-clamp on this, what you would do is you can actually put it right around here, and the C-clamp can go in the back there. That's actually solid back there, and you'll be able to just push that together, and what you're doing is just pushing this piston back in. So I would also mention to just check your seals around here. Make sure there's no brake fluid leaking, especially if you do a lot of on-track use, because This will, as you can see, I've burnt my calipers pretty nicely. So this could be a lot of heat, and you want to make sure those seals are okay. Again, mine are pretty new, but I still check them. And then we're also going to want to check these seals as well, and make sure these rubber boots aren't trashed. So I'm going to take this slider pin out. These should move freely. See how this is a little, that just tells me the grease is probably pretty old. So I'm going to get some fresh grease in there and clean it out a little bit. You're going to want to do that to both of these, top and bottom. So this one's moving. See how freely that one moves as compared to the top, which is a little less desirable. So yeah, you don't want to make sure these move freely. So once these are all lubed up, you're going to remove these two bolts. So you're probably going to need a breaker bar for these. They're torqued very highly, so make sure you have something strong enough to get those out. Then you're going to remove those, which will remove the caliper carrier, and then we can remove the rotor. So once the carrier is removed, it's probably a good time to clean, because these things get pretty dirty. Then we're just going to remove the rotor, and I just tie the caliper up somewhere. You don't want to put stress on these lines, especially if you have the OEM lines. They're just rubber. Even with stainless steel lines, you do not want to stress that line, so just make sure your caliper is somewhere that's not going to put stress on them. So it's also a good idea to take a wire brush to all the places that the pads make contact. Just clean them up a little bit. It will usually prevent squealing and also uneven pad wear. So I just put the freshly resurfaced rotor on. Be sure to check out my other video that goes over using a tool to resurface stuff at home with a drill, the flex zone. So check that out. So I got the rotor back on, screw is back in. Now we're gonna put the caliper carrier back on. So we're gonna we have our caliper carrier back on. We're gonna put these two bolts back in. These need to be torqued. They're very high torque. They need to be torqued to 150 pounds. It's actually 147 point something, which is 200 Newton meters. But I'm going to do 150. So you need something that you can torque with. So I got a torque wrench. But it's got to be something big because that's a lot of foot-pounds. Okay, well that was an experience. So that is a lot of foot-pounds, and if you don't have the right tool, make sure you get it. Alright, so we're going to throw brake pads on. Okay, so now I'm going to grease these up. So we're going to put it everywhere the carrier touches. So there and on that side. Okay, so we got both of them in. They're all greased up. You're just going to want to make sure these are locked in place, so you don't run into any problems later. Let's put the caliper on. Okay, so we're going to put our two caliper bolts back in. That one and that one. And then again, you're going to need a 17mm wrench on that end, and you're going to put a socket on the other. 13mm socket. And then just tighten them up. So you don't need to go crazy on those, hence that's the way they're set up, the bolt with the nut there on the end. So tighten it up, but not overly tight. Alright, so everything's back together. I'm going to throw the wheel on, and then we're going to pump the brakes. Alright, really important. Make sure after you do any type of brake job, you pump the brakes. Otherwise, your brake pedal will go to the floor, and you may take off and crash into something.
Thanks for watching CB Racing. Click that bell down below and subscribe to our channel and give us a big thumbs up. Bye!